Now, the idea of the Anunnaki symbol, representative of this golden flying disc that has at its heart a red dot which represents the life within, and around the gold disc the idea of a blue energy field. This is actually to some degree representative of the ancient ships that used to visit your planet from the Anunnaki, and is representative of the symbols that you still see in many of the cultures on your planet, the flying disc. Represented in many different ways, of course. Not a literal representation of their ships, but close enough, in the sense that the ships were basically disc-like in the center and did possess a certain type of wings and steering mechanisms as they glided through your atmosphere, even though they didn't necessarily require them. In space, they were capable of retracting and folding in a way that allowed the ships to be more streamlined when these appendages were unnecessary in the vacuum of space. But once they entered your atmosphere, they did look like flying discs in a variety of ways. So they could steer through your atmosphere and use the gravitational fields by extending these wings to guide them and land them safely upon your planet. As many of you already understand, the Anunnaki are the extraterrestrial civilization generally responsible for the alteration of your genetic structure from what you would call the natural hominid that existed on your planet called Homo erectus to the idea of now what you call yourselves to be Homo sapien. In altering the genetic structure by including some of the Anunnaki DNA, they allowed you to create or exist in its present form, the human being, as you call yourselves, so that they would have a relationship to the Anunnaki to be utilized in a variety of ways in that relationship as workers, as companions, in a variety of ways, for their purposes of visiting your world, which fundamentally was to aid and assist them in mining minerals, gold in particular, that would allow them to alter the weather patterns of their own planet and make adjustments in that way to their energy fields. Now, the group of Anunnaki that actually visited your world, that was originally consigned to find those minerals and bring them back to the home world, were actually, to begin with, assigned to simply do this task themselves. Eventually, they found that this was something that was relatively difficult for them to do on their own, and so they believed they needed what you would call a workforce in order to aid and assist them. And knowing that there was a natural indigenous being upon the planet that was similar in form to them, they understood that they could genetically alter it to aid and assist them in this way by upgrading it, so to speak, to something more similar to their own form, and thus, by thus creating that force, allow that force to work in the mines to extract the gold and other minerals that they require, eventually also developing a long-term relationship with them in a variety of ways, even to the point of companionship many, many years after that. Now, this began somewhere around 500,000 of your years ago in the general areas that you call the Middle East and the African continent. And those branches of the hominid species that were not altered genetically by the Anunnaki evolved on their own in parallel to the human beings on your planet that the Anunnaki had created. And those that were not altered eventually evolved into the form you now call Sasquatch. So the idea is that if you had not been altered at all, today you would all be Sasquatch. But because you were altered, because you were evolved in that way, you became human beings. This also allowed for certain kinds of incarnational experiences to happen that would be very different than the incarnational experiences of Sasquatch, or Yeti, or Bigfoot, or whatever you wish to call that branch of your cousins. Now, they evolved in a very natural way, which allowed them to have a much closer connection in many ways to the idea of nature, and allowed them to develop abilities and skills that you do contain, but in a sense have forgotten that you have because of the alteration. Their abilities and skills as Sasquatch allow them to actually enter interdimensional states, passing from parallel reality to parallel reality, different dimensions to different dimensions, which is why they are so difficult to find on your planet when they don't want to be found. Nevertheless, getting back to your story, the branch that you became Eventually, there were also interminglings between some of the humans of the time and the Anunnaki on the world. And these created births, natural births of beings that you have in your legends come to call the so-called demigods and so forth. Now, the Anunnaki were much taller in general than you are. And some of the earlier races on your planet of humanity were also much taller than most of you, although you are regaining not only your height again, but also your longevity, because in times past, a lot of the genes were passed along to the human beings that were genetically created that allowed them to live for hundreds of years, because the Anunnaki lived for thousands of years. The idea is that you are regaining this ability again. The genetic material is being opened up again because of new vibrations that are now existing in this present day on your planet, allowing you more longevity, allowing you greater height, greater health, greater vitality. And you are opening up those connections energetically to the Anunnaki and those genetic materials that you contain. Now, of course, the Anunnaki themselves also contained a mixture of different genetics from different races. We will not get into that so much right now, although you can certainly understand, we will give you a little bit of a sneak preview, that one of these was what is called on that diagram the Proto-Sapiens. We will get into them another time. But you could say that in general, the Proto-Sapiens are the precursors of all the human forms in your galaxy. Now, the Anunnaki, the branch that was on your planet and creating the idea of the Homo sapien groupings, were actually just a branch. And in their original assignment, were not really supposed to tinker with the genetics of the planet. When the main council of Anunnaki discovered that they had done so and created a new intelligent race of beings, well, let's just say they weren't very happy about it. They actually recalled that Anunnaki contingent from the Earth, and in many ways left you to your own devices, allowing you to grow on your own, to evolve on your own, with some degree of guidance from them, because they felt responsible in allowing that contingent of Anunnaki to create you. They felt responsible to guide you to some degree, although it was not the original plan. And so again, the stories of visitations over time, again from the idea of angels and gods from the sky, leading and guiding and teaching in a variety of ways to allow you to grow into your own civilization and allow you to take over some of the cities that had been created and become the actual kings of old, although the Anunnaki bloodlines still coursed strongly in their veins. You see this in the representation of the ancient 10 kings of Atlantis, in Lemurian times, and even into relative modern times, as you still remember Egypt as having kings, and then eventually the idea of pharaohs. But all this goes back to the concept of the blue bloods, the royal lines, and everything that created the concept of royalty on your planet, because it is traced all the way back to the idea of the Anunnaki, who actually were slightly bluishly tinged. So the blue blood line was looked upon as the purest line in that way, although of course you all contain Anunnaki genetics. But there might be here and there some that are more directly related in direct lineages to some of those ancient genes. Now, once that began to happen, and you had on your planet contingents of humans who were creating their own civilizations, mostly guiding themselves with a little bit of input here and there from extraterrestrial beings and extra-dimensional beings, teaching them how to open up their consciousness to tap into source, to draw down and download information from a variety of sources. Then eventually humanity was pretty much left on its own in that way to evolve to a certain point to see if they would arrive at a point where they could then reconnect with the idea of extraterrestrial beings, extra-dimensional beings, which would show that they evolved to a point where the next stage of evolution could occur.
Okay, Bashar, are there any Anunnaki either here physically on Earth or communicating telepathically with anyone here?
Not in their original form contemporarily, unless you are referring to the Greys as the devolved result of a certain branch of Anunnaki. A faction of the Anunnaki set up shop, if you will, on a planet, and ultimately created catastrophes in their world that ultimately resulted in the devolution of themselves into the form you now understand as the Gray.
Right, I actually knew that.
So in that sense, they are still, to some degree, Anunnaki, though they now require the idea of the genetic material that they utilize to create the human body to begin with, to reinforce their own race and create the hybrid species so that they can incarnationally continue. So in that sense, I suppose if you want to simply talk about it incarnationally, you and we together are also offshoots of Anunnaki.
Yes, exactly.
At least to some degree genetically.
Are there any, maybe looking at it from a time-traveling standpoint, although we know there's no time really linearly, are there any ones from what we would perceive from our past that are here now that have,
from
say,
time
jumped?
to time, they do peer in, yes. From time to time, they have participated in certain things, yes. It is not that common. From time to time, this has been done, yes. It is not that common.
Okay. And when
some of what individuals have called the large Nordics are to some degree representative of some of the ancient Anunnakis. You follow?
Yes, I've heard you.
That said, I'd like to go into the origins of those beings,
What beings?
the Anunnaki,
All right.
and the bloodlines of the Anunnaki.
We will delve a tiny bit into that.
Can you tell me the origins of Hermes Trismegistus, or Thoth, his father and bloodline?
Well, Hermes Trismegistus is farther down the bloodline than Thoth is?
Same incarnation of the same soul?
Well, same oversoul. Remember that reincarnation is an illusion.
Yes.
Yes, everything exists at once.
Yes.
You can have the experience of reincarnation, but that's not mechanically what's happening. It's simply that as you perceive through linear time the connections that you make from the now, you perceive them as if they are memories.
Yes.
Therefore, you call them reincarnations instead of multiple simultaneous incarnations, coexistent with me now.
Yes.
Nevertheless, the idea in linear terminology of Hermes is a little bit farther down the line, and yes, is connected to the idea of a similar oversoul extension to Thoth. But in terms of the idea of the Anu origins, you're actually talking about something that comes from a different dimension.
So you couldn't say like Enki is the previous bloodline before Thoth.
You're talking about something that is actually a parallel bloodline, not necessarily a linear one.
Okay. So the different, would you say the two warring factions of like what they talk about Enlil and Enki
Yes.
being two different distinct bloodlines that have been at
That's
conflict?
more precise.
Okay. And so the Brotherhood of the Snake and the origins of the Brotherhood of the Snake were from the Enki lineage of the incarnations of like Adam, Jesus, and some of those teachers.
The snake representing the concept of ancient wisdom, yes.
Then the Anunnaki come and like guide us.
They did. What do you think some of the stories in the Bible are about?
Okay.
Of angels coming down to guide you, of being led through the desert by a pillar of fire and a pillar of cloud. What do you think that's about? It's about the guidance of the Anunnaki who recalled those who created Homo sapiens because that was against their law to do so. But they then realized that they had to take responsibility for guiding you up to a certain point until they felt that they could let you sort of evolve on your own to see what would happen.
Do you think that though they will return after
They have evolved in a certain way that they are no longer the Anunnaki you knew hundreds of thousands of years ago. Some of them have evolved into what you will now experience as the Pleiadians.
There was another thing that I hope it's not too personal and you can say if it was.
Oh, all right.
Okay. We were discussing, and you stopped what we were discussing because there was a synchronicity between you and April when I brought up the DNA work that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I find some interest in the DNA work that I do everywhere.
Yes.
And I was going to incorporate that into my book.
Go ahead.
I will, thank you.
All
I was wondering if you could give me any pointers on that. There are different cultures around the world that would assist me in
Well,
a
again,
broader,
the idea
unified
now
version.
is that many of the markers that were turned off in the Anunnaki hybridization that created Homo sapien are now being turned on in your DNA. This is why you're experiencing expansions of consciousness, becoming more sensitive to formerly invisible energies, becoming more what you call telepathic and psychic. Even the desire to explore spirituality is the result of certain genetic markers being turned on that have been turned off for thousands upon thousands of years. So you are becoming more like the Anunnaki now, and therefore it is important for you to maintain the vibrational state of being that you prefer, so that you will not necessarily walk down exactly the same path, but will be your own version of that idea in a positive and constructive way.
I have so two big topics or questions that I wanted to go over.
Yes.
The first is the story of Adam, Eve, and Lilith.
Yes.
I was wondering if maybe you can shed some light on that, and did these people actually exist?
Well, in a manner of speaking, yes, although the story, you know, in a sense, has been rendered into something simplified as a tale, as a metaphor. The idea of, in the ancient language of the Anunnaki, that injected their genetics into Homo erectus to create Homo sapien, is that the male version of Homo sapien they created in their language is Adama. The female version is Eva, which you have transliterated into Adam and Eve over time. So the idea is that, of course, there was a first male and a first female, but the idea has been truncated, collapsed, condensed into the metaphorical story that you know in your Bible. Lilith represents again the idea of the continuation of the line of Homo sapien in the genetic alterations by the Anunnaki, and represents kind of the concept of independence, the ultimate independence of the human race, and the balance point that needed to be achieved when it was recognized that Homo sapien had been created, and offered the third alternative. As always, we talk about the idea that there is a trinity in existence, not just a duality. So the concept of Lilith and the feminine principle in balance, the masculine and feminine principle in balance in Lilith, creates the midpoint, the third reality, the balance point in the Trinity between the two dualities of male and female.
And why is it that Lilith, it seems to be that she was taken out of the modern version of what we learn?
Because as a patriarch he grew and wanted to reinforce the idea of male dominance, the concept of the balance point of male and female in one body was anathema to them. And they sought to remove it so that they would retain control and empowerment over others and over the female side.
Okay, and that's interesting. And was this all done in a laboratory in Temple Mount, at Temple Mount?
There were many different labs around your planet, but the primary one was in the Middle East. The idea, again, is that, remember, this wasn't all done all at once. This took some time. So the idea of this story is quite condensed, and it condenses many, many decades, even hundreds of years of time in the creation of Homo sapien.
Okay. The Garden of Eden, can you shed some light on what that was and maybe where it was?
Well, again, in the Middle East, as given, between what you call the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in the Fertile Crescent, being the primary contact point and laboratory and civilization that the Anunnaki established when they came to Earth and spread out from there.
Okay. And the serpent that came to Eve, who or what was this?
This is simply an indication of the awakening of the genetic markers that would allow the female to be closer to the concept of the original Anunnaki genetic structure. This is why you have the double intertwined serpents on your medical caduceus still today, as an indication of the genetics laboratories and the genetics that were injected into Homo erectus to create Homo sapien, being that in the feminine side there was an alteration that allowed the feminine side to become a little bit more aware of the situation than the masculine side, and a little bit closer in expression to the original Anunnaki genetic strain.
That's interesting.
It also represents, therefore, the idea of ancient knowledge, that in a sense, because of the genetic alterations in the feminine form, there was more capability of accessing the knowledge of the Anunnaki.
That's fascinating. And in the Bible, in the Hebrew Bible, the Anunnaki, is that translated into Elohim?
For the most part, yes. Although the Elohim can also be other beings that were encountered from time to time. But in general, it's a reference to the ancient Anus, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Bashar.
Yes.
And on another topic, so I seem to be obsessed with this story. I think it's the most exciting story, spectacular story, the story of Exodus.
Yes, yes.
Did the Jews know that were they aware that it was aliens that were taking them out of Egypt? Or
not as such. They didn't really comprehend the concept of aliens in the same way that you do today. They understood that the beings were from a higher dimensional realm, but the idea to them at that time, in their understanding, is what they ultimately decided was beings from heaven. Beings from above.
Is that what? So right now in our reality, it's kind of, we think that it's God that led the Jews out of Egypt and not actual beings. And was this what they wanted us to believe, or was it just a misunderstanding and it just kind of?
It is not that you were given information that would allow you to necessarily understand the specifics of it. So it is something that simply grew in human understanding over time based on the lack of information you had about exactly what these beings were, because they did not deem that humans were ready to understand the full implications of beings from other civilizations among the stars.
And do you think we are now?
Well, you obviously understand that there can be civilizations among the stars. You're talking to one right now.
I am.
Many people on your planet are willing to accept the possibility, at least, that there can be other civilizations on planets around other stars. This is not something that is necessarily that strange to your civilization anymore. You talk about it quite a bit in your scientific and astronomical communities.
True. Yes. And more.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could describe, I would really like to know what the interaction was like between Moses and the ETs at the top of Mount Sinai.
Some of it was physiological, some of it was telepathic. He was invited into a craft. Many things he was made to forget, but some things he was allowed to remember, as according to what was necessary for the proper approach and interactions and relationship between those beings and the people at that time, so that they could be guided.
And lastly, the Star of David, where did that come about, and why is it the symbol of the Jews?
It is the symbol of the relationship between those beings and those people, and in general between the above and the below. It is the intersection of the higher dimensions with the lower physical reality. It is a flattened form of the Merkaba.
Okay, so why wouldn't it be just the symbol of humanity? Why not the symbol for all of us?
It is, as I said. I just said that. At the time, it was the symbol of the relationship between those specific beings and the group that they were guiding. But it is, in general, the symbol of the relationship from the above to the below, from the heavens to the earth.
Okay. And one last hard question. Why did they save the Jews from Egypt, but they didn't protect them or save them in World War II from the Holocaust?
It was important to allow certain genetics from the Anunnaki line to survive up to a certain point. But beyond that, once there was dominion of the humans of the earth to make their own decisions, their decisions could not be intervened or interfered with beyond a certain point.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bashar. I love you very much.
Our unconditional love to you as well. By the way, had they not tinkered with you, you also would not have evolved the concept of religion in the way that you did. You would simply have, as you're rediscovering, a concept of a natural relationship to creation rather than intermediaries. It was because many of them made you believe they were gods and allowed you to worship them that the entire basis of religion was created on your planet. You wouldn't have it if it wasn't for their existence in your lives back then, about 500, 300,000 years ago. Yes, it is. And again, we're talking holographic history, because there are many versions of this. You are evolving to a point where you will have a version that will serve you in the best possible way, which is one of the reasons why, when open contact actually does occur, one of the gifts you will be given is what you might think of as your true history on Earth. All of it. All the missing pieces. Everything. And then you will get to decide which parts you relate to and how you can allow yourself to be the people that you prefer to be, that would be representative of the kind of people that would have been created by the true history. That is in alignment with who you truly are. That's what we mean by true history. Not that there is only one history that is true, but that it is the history that is true for who you prefer to be, vibrationally. Does this make sense? Yes. All right.
So if you think that there's nothing outside that can affect us, is that true?
There is no outside for anything to come from. There is only within. Everything that you experience occurs within your consciousness. You understand that? Okay. There is nothing outside. There is no outside for anything to be in. There is nothing outside your consciousness.
Everything is in my consciousness.
Everything.
Within.
Okay. Everything.
Okay.
The only way you can have an experience of any kind is if you create that experience within your consciousness.
Like, for example,
Yes.
nature.
Nature.
Yeah, when I'm in nature,
Yes.
I feel good.
Yes.
Why is that?
Did she really ask that question? All right. Why is that?
Well, if nothing...
When I say there is nothing outside, I don't mean in the colloquial sense that there's nothing outside the building. Nature, however, to answer your question more directly, is by its very definition more in tune with the frequency of your natural self.
Right.
Therefore, you feel good because you are using nature as a permission slip to allow yourself to be more in touch with your natural vibration. And that always feels really good.
What I think, okay, I got it, but then how about anything negative outside? When I feel bad, something happens outside.
When you feel bad, it's because you believe that your relationship to that circumstance is defined in a negative way. Redefine your relationship to the circumstance, and you will not feel bad. I am not saying to ignore the feeling. You must acknowledge the feeling. All right, I feel bad. Why? What would I have to believe is true about my relationship to this situation in order for me to have this feeling? Because remember, all emotions, without exception, all emotions, all feelings only exist because there is a belief that exists first. You cannot have a feeling without having a definition or a belief first. So if you have a bad feeling, all right, acknowledge it. All right, I've got a bad feeling. So what? Now, I ask myself, do I prefer this feeling? Well, no. I would prefer something else. I would prefer to feel joyful. All right. So let me ask myself, why did I have this bad feeling? What brought this about? Well, I know that feelings come from beliefs. Oh, all right. So, what kind of a belief, the question goes, would I have to have about my relationship to the situation in order for me to have a bad feeling about it? That's how you begin the process of self-investigation and finding out what the definition is. And in finding out what the definition is and identifying it, you can then find out why you had it. And when you find out why you had it, you can let that go and change it for something else you would prefer as a belief. And when you change it for a belief you would prefer, then that belief will generate a feeling that you prefer, which will also generate thoughts that you prefer, which will also generate behavior that you prefer.
I tried that. I know you taught us that, but it's not that easy.
That's a belief.
Okay.
You see? So now the question is, why do I have a belief that says it's not that easy? You see, that's the next step. You can always take the question to the next level. If you find that you have tried it one way, as you say, and it doesn't seem to be working for you, look at the essence of what you're actually saying. What's the result? All right, the result that you're feeling is, this is difficult. It's not that easy. Very good. You've now arrived at another place where you have something to work with. So acknowledge it. All right, I acknowledge that I have a feeling it's difficult. I have a feeling it's not that easy. That must mean what? I have a belief that it's not easy. Why do I have that belief? And you can start the investigation again and keep doing that and keep doing that and keep doing that until you truly find the true fundamental foundational underlying belief that is generating all the other secondary level beliefs.
I think it's not a belief but an experience.
No. Your experience comes from your belief. I understand that you have experience in physical reality, and you can say, well, that happened to me, and so that's why I feel this way. But you see, you are simply putting, as you say, euphemistically, the cart before the horse. The way you've been taught to look at reality is making you think that that comes from the experience. But in fact, the experience first came from the belief. Now, once you have the experience may reinforce the belief, but it doesn't generate the belief. The belief generates the experience, which then by definition strengthens the belief. Because all beliefs must, by definition, contain an element, a component that is a self-generating, self-fulfilling aspect. If beliefs did not make it seem as if no other beliefs were possible, you wouldn't be able to have that particular experience. So when you have a belief that generates an experience, the experience will then always have the capacity to reinforce the belief and make it seem to be the only thing that's true. But that's not true. You have to get to a point where you know it's not true, no matter how it feels, so that when something happens, you can recognize that the experience is not causing the belief, it's just reinforcing the belief. And that therefore the experience can be used to put you in touch with the belief that generated the experience to begin with. You follow me?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I kind of.
I think so.
Yeah.
Work with that.
Okay, I have a problem when my husband tells me to do that.
Why do you have a problem with it? And why are you defining it as a problem?
Well, because it comes from outside. Not
There is no outside. All the things you choose to feel, you choose to feel. Anyone could come up to you and say anything. You could still laugh, you know.
That's what he said. You know, someone slaps, you know, even if someone slaps in my head, you know, I still have to choose how I feel, how I want to feel.
But the point is, you're choosing, which means it's under your control. So if you are choosing to feel bad, you have to ask yourself, why would I choose that? And when you ask that kind of a question, it can put you in touch with the belief that makes you think that that's your only choice, when in fact you have many choices of how to feel and how to believe. So you have to find out why you're choosing what you're choosing. Up to you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
And if there are a certain number of people that exist on your planet, then there is enough for all, as long as you all allow the abundance to come in the way that actually works for you. Because not everyone needs or wants the same kind of expression of abundance. So the idea is, if you all allow synchronicity to show you what your kind of abundance may be at any given moment, and this doesn't mean you can't have this kind then, and this kind now, and another kind later on. It can change around, but it will change around in such a manner that it will change around in harmony with everyone else's change around. So that if suddenly someone needs this, and you need that, and then later you need this, and they need that, it will change in perfect harmony, in perfect synchronicity. And you will get it when you need it. At exactly the right place, at exactly the right time. Not a moment before. But not a moment later either. The idea is to understand that you don't have to make any of this work. All you have to do is allow it to work, because it already works. It does. It really does. Honest. It does. Again, if it didn't, you wouldn't exist. You would not be supported in your existence at all. Please remember how unconditionally supported you are. You are so unconditionally supported by creation that you are even allowed to believe you are not unconditionally supported. That's how unconditionally supported you are. So take it at face value. If you actually have been given the ability to believe that you are worthless, that you are unsupported, that you are nothing, and yet you still exist, what you are being given is a demonstration that the universe is absolutely willing to unconditionally support anything you say is true about yourself. So if it's willing to support you when you say, I'm worth nothing, I am hateful, I am a bad person, I am worthless, if it's willing to support you there, it is certainly willing to support you when you say, I am creative, I am loving, I deserve. There is absolutely no difference in the eyes of creation, no contradiction whatsoever. And when you decide which one is true for you, there is nothing in existence that will contradict you. It will simply reflect whatever you have said is true about you at that moment. Because that's what it means to be made in the image of creation. That you decide, you have your free will to decide who and what you are, and that reflection is given to you through your passion, your joy, your love, your excitement. It's as simple as that if you want it to be. Of course, if you enjoy complication, by all means, please do so. Because I don't want to take away your fun. And if you feel like struggling, if you feel like making an effort out of it, by all means do so, because that's valid too. That's the point. It's all valid. And when it becomes all valid, when you do not judge this as being less than that, then paradoxically you will actually get what you prefer more often, because you are not focused on trying not to get that. The idea is that when every choice is equal, then it is easy to choose what you prefer. But if you are afraid of certain choices and devalue them, then you're actually devaluing a part of creation, and you will only get the reflection that you are devaluing a part of yourself. And therefore, you will be forced, in a sense, simply by the nature of existence, to focus on the thing you are devaluing, because that's where your focus is. You're putting undue energy on making it stand out in some way, shape, or form from the rest of the choices that you could make that are all equal. And anytime you make something stand out, you're putting energy into it and saying, this needs to be bigger and more important than anything else. And therefore, whether positive or negative, it will be. Until you can relax your insistence that it needs to be so important and allow yourself to know that it will not control you, it will simply respond to you in whatever way, shape, or form you start choosing to respond to the idea of yourself. Again, we may discuss some of this at length. Now, in keeping, first of all, with the idea of the area you are in on your planet, and in keeping with the idea that many of you recognize it as a strong vortex location, we ask the question, what is a vortex actually? All right. Well, some of you have described the idea that it is energy in motion, swirling energy and spiraling motion. Yes. Some of you have said it is a gateway, it is a doorway. Yes. Some of you have said it is a reflection and an opportunity to understand more and more of who I am. Yes. But what is it actually? Well, as you understand the idea of physical reality and know that in a sense it is an illusion, nevertheless the experience is real. And the experience, being real, cloaks itself in certain symbols. One symbol being electromagnetic energy. Now, this electromagnetic energy is the first level of physicalization from higher non-physical frequencies of consciousness. This electromagnetic energy, what you may call spirit matter, if you wish, densifies and densifies and densifies and densifies, much like the idea of steam to water to ice. All made of the same stuff, you might say, but at different frequencies, different experiences, going from the less material to the denser material of the physical world experience. Again, yes, illusionary, but the experience is real as you describe it, and as you have collectively agreed to participate in it to varying degrees. The vortex, therefore, is that which is representative of, shall we say, vibrational, harmonic, nodal points in your reality that represent all stages of frequency, from lowest to highest, in that sense, that make up the experience you are having and connect you to higher realms as well. It represents a scale, a spectrum, if you will, of those nodal point frequencies that allow for access into different domains of consciousness. It is, in that sense, therefore, capable of being utilized as an unlocking mechanism in a variety of ways according to whatever your imagination is attracted most to. Because every technique and every tool and every situation is what we call a permission slip. Anything like that is actually not doing the thing itself in terms of the changes you feel, but it is reflective of and representative of the idea of your belief system as it might exist at present. And as you find yourself attracted to be in certain locations and take advantage of certain vortices and energies, the idea is that you have attracted yourself to that because that represents the arrangement at that moment of your belief system, and that in that it reflects the arrangement of your belief system, it gives you insight into yourself sufficiently to allow you to give yourself permission to be more of who you are. So it's not like the vortex is doing it for you, but the vortex is like a reflection of what you are willing within your belief system structure to allow yourself to give yourself permission to do. So all these things are permission slips to allow you to give yourself permission based on your belief system of allowing yourself to be more of who you prefer to be. In that you have gravitated to this particular one, all of you. It is clear that you all have similarity of frequency, even though it is also quite varied. But the idea is that each of you know, each of you are familiar with the idea that this is a reflection of many different levels of frequency, and each of you are able, through a variety of experiences and reasons, to use this energy in a variety of ways as befits who you are as a being. And you can come together and sometimes work at this in groups, or you can do it individually and or both. But the idea is that when you do allow yourself to form that relationship with those nodal points of multiple frequencies, up the scale, as it were, and stand in that energy, then what that does is it starts those vibrations going in you, all the way up the scale to whatever degree your belief system is willing to handle it, in whatever manner, whatever format. And by unlocking those things in that way, it will allow the belief systems that are within you that are out of alignment to be brought to the forefront and dealt with and integrated. And allow them to be transformed into belief systems that are within alignment to the joy, creative love, and excitement that represents your true, natural, vibrational self. So take advantage of it in whatever way, shape, or form you so desire, but understand that as you stand in a vortex, you are the vortex yourself. And the vortex around you is, in a sense, a projection of the vortex you are, of the nodal point you are, of the multidimensional being you each are. But you are doing that in a way where you can experience it as a larger outer reflection that shows you, in a sense, how big you are. The vortex is you. It's a reflection of the true being, or shall we say a truer representation of the fuller being that you are. So understand that when you stand in a vortex, what you're doing is you're forming a relationship to your greater self. You are opening up and saying, I am willing to have a relationship with my higher self. I am willing to form this connection. I am willing to be more of who I am. And that is a profound commitment. It is a profound relationship, and it creates profound results in your life if you are willing to allow it to do so. It is a bold move, and we congratulate you for making a bold move to be willing to see and experience and be more of yourself. And we thank you for allowing us to participate in your willingness to do so and explore more of who you are. To us, this is a great gift that we thank you for, because through you, we then get to see that many more ways that creation has of expressing itself within the creation that it is. So, thank you for being multidimensional facets of the multidimensional crystal of all that is.
Hi, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
I have various questions too, and you may have answered a lot of questions I have with her question.
That's all right. I haven't answered yours.
That's true. I know my passion.
And that would be?
Music.
All right.
But I have a difficult...
All right, now one moment before you go on.
Okay.
Remember also that we talk about the idea of following your passion, following your excitement, and also, in this context today, the passion, the desire we're talking about is also for changing core belief. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
All right, continue.
Well, the core belief I want to change is I've been a healer for 15 years, and
All right.
I'm angry.
You're angry, an angry healer.
That's right, Bashar. I'm feeling that anger.
A no-nonsense, knock-down, drag-out, angry healer.
Yes.
All right.
I'm ready to give it up.
Are you?
Yes, I want to, but it's the money.
It's the money.
The surviving.
The surviving. Ooh, not even living. Surviving. Ooh.
And the funny thing is that I'm abundant right now.
I see.
I am being very well taken care of through my husband.
Yes.
But
That's a form of abundance.
Yes. But I want to find self-sufficiency.
Well, go right ahead.
And I want to go for my music. I want to let go of the healership. And
go right ahead.
But
However, I understand you are physical beings. Please pay attention to your true system of beliefs I know you want to get to the core things and change these, but while you are holding on to certain beliefs, don't short circuit yourself by moving into something you say is your passion sooner than your belief systems are honestly ready to let you do. Otherwise, you will just wind up jumping off a cliff and suddenly being surprised that you can't fly. As long as you still hold on to the belief that you will not fly, it would be wise not to jump off the cliff. Or at least start climbing down the cliff. As long as you believe your belief systems can support you that far, you can start some level of your passion, but respect where your beliefs actually are, and that simply takes honest self-assessment to find out what those definitions are so that you're not fooling yourself into thinking you're truly ready to live your passion when you yourself have contrary beliefs about that. So it's all right to take your time, is all we are saying, as long as you respect where you're truly at with it. Now, if you really feel that you can take a bigger leap than you have before, then by all means take whatever leap you are comfortable with, but make sure it's simply as much as you possibly can do in the direction of your passion while respecting where you're really at. I'm not saying be hesitant. I'm saying have true recognition of what your beliefs will really allow you to do. Because sometimes when you take that leap and feel that you've gone through an experience where taking that leap has suddenly smacked you in the face like a brick wall, that experience itself is for the purpose of putting you in touch with other beliefs you may still be holding on to that didn't really allow you to take the leap you wanted. And so that's okay too. You follow me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Just use the experience that way and you will be using it, let's say, appropriately. Nevertheless, you want to do your music instead of your healing, although there isn't necessarily that much difference between the two, is there?
I'm not sure yet.
Well, is not healing vibration?
Yes.
Is not music vibration?
True.
Does not music heal?
True.
Well, you can still be a healer and be a musical one. Maybe you're just angry with yourself for not being the kind of healer you would actually rather be. Yes, no, maybe?
Yes. Well,
All right.
I'm also experiencing guilt with that because...
Let's pile on the negative beliefs. Let's make it that much more difficult. Not only am I angry that I'm not doing what I want, but I'm also guilty about not doing it. Bad me, shame on me. Let's really pile on the difficulty level instead of just doing what I want. Let's spend more time processing all the things I want to judge about myself. Now, you understand, I'm not making fun of you, yeah?
I understand.
All right. However, sometimes humans are so easy to make fun of. We just can't help ourselves. Because we don't have TV. You put on quite a show, all of you, and we are more than happy to watch. However, this is an interactive show. So, what do you gain? And here's where we connect. Very good for asking the question, very good for making the statement. Brilliant, thank you. Here's where we connect to the idea of really exploring core beliefs, because, as we have said, the beliefs you hold on to, the definitions you hold on to because you want to. You never hold on. You will never, I guarantee it, believe me, you will never hold on to a belief or a definition, no matter how negative, that you don't define as working for you on some level. If you hold on to it, it's because you think it serves you to hold on to it. Because you've defined it in a way that says, as uncomfortable as it is to hold on to this belief, the alternative is scarier. So this makes me feel more comfortable, so I'll keep it, thank you. You will never hold on to that belief if you actually believed this was more advantageous. But if you're scared of this choice, you will think this is more advantageous, to hold on to what you know, to hold on to what you're familiar with. As uncomfortable as it may be, it's familiar, and sometimes that's why the symbol on the Enneagrammatic circuit, the last one is the unknown. Sometimes you define the unknown as scarier, and you'd rather have the familiar, as unpleasant as it is. And there it is again, another example of attaching definition to things. This is horrible, it's horrible, it's horrible. I can't stand it, I can't stand it, I can't stand it, but I can't stand that more. When you switch that idea, believe me, you will let go of this instantly and attach to that immediately. As soon as you change the definition of what actually serves you better, as soon as you get in touch with that core belief that going in this direction will actually be the best thing for you, you will immediately do so, and believe me, nothing will stop you. Nothing. Nothing gets in your way. Nothing gets in your way. Everything you're doing because you choose to do it, because you've defined it as the best thing for you to do by comparison to this other option. But if you know that other option could serve you, you simply have to get in touch with the rest of the definitions that don't allow you to automatically choose it, that don't allow you to feel that it would. And that's usually the definition that does that. Is this making some sense to you?
Yes, I just want to feel it so I can go.
All right. Well, as you say, first of all, you're angry about doing something that's not really who you are. All right, that's fine. Natural anger, shall we call it alignment, energy alignment, that's what it's doing. It's aligning you with your truth. Natural anger lasts about, 15 seconds. Anything beyond that is judgment. You understand?
Yes.
Natural anger is energy alignment. It's the recognition that a thing is not you by comparison. And you go, oh, no, not me. That's not who I am. But that's all anger actually is. If it lasts longer than that, that's where these other definitions of judgment come in. Oh, guilty. Guilty for not choosing this sooner. Now I'm really angry. And the guilt feeds the judgmental version of anger and perpetuates and magnifies that, and you spend your day going around in circles dealing with that, instead of simply using the anger in a positive way and say, oh, this version of healing is not who I am. All right. This is. And start moving in that direction, because you know that's who you are, and because you know that's who you are, you know that's what will support you. Because what excites you the most comes as a complete kit. Otherwise, it would be pointless. If what excited you the most couldn't support you in the reality you've chosen to be in, there would be no point in that being the thing that excites you. Because it wouldn't allow you to do that thing. It wouldn't allow you to continue to move in that direction if it didn't come with the ability to bring you what you need to continue to move in that direction. So you can even logic this out for yourself if that's the facility that works best for you, and recognize that there would be no reason for you to get excited about something if it didn't contain the ability to do that thing, to continue your excitement. Do you follow me?
I follow you.
Is this making sense and dollars to you?
I'm feeling it, yes.
All right. Now, if the other issues come up, I'm unsure about this, I'm unsure about that, I'm not good enough for this, I'm not qualified for that, I don't know enough about this, I don't know enough about that. Do what you need to do to gain the information and experience that you need, knowing that that's not a path toward your excitement, that all those things are part of your excitement. They're just different perspectives, different variations of it. Different parts of the process of living your excitement. It's all living your excitement. And you can use even what you've been doing as part of your excitement, because it's finally brought you to a place where it's become clear what you are not. And sometimes people on Earth have to simply figure out what they are by first figuring out what they are not. Sometimes it just works best that way for some of you, because now you know where you don't want to go. And that helps you really define where you do want to go. And if you worked it that way, bless it. It got you to this realization. So don't be angry with it. Don't be angry with yourself. Use it. Say, aha, freedom, release, insight, inspiration. The path I've been on, the things I've been doing have brought me to this realization. Hallelujah.
Gotcha. Thank you, Bashar.
If you don't use your life up to this point that way, it's like having a path of stepping stones and saying, I invalidate the stepping stones I have been walking on. If you invalidate them, if you judge them as unworthy of having been there, they will vanish experientially, and thus then how can they get you to where you want to go? How can they lead you to the rest of the stepping stones if you invalidate the stones you've stepped on?
I think it's the fear of crossing over and
Yes.
how I'm going to be supported financially
Yes.
to get to that level of my passion.
Yes.
I don't want to go to work at Mickey D's. And even though that my husband is supporting me, I keep thinking, I really want to let go of the massage.
Yes.
I do. I
All
have
right.
to.
Then
But-
do what you can in the direction of your highest joy to the degree that your belief system will allow you to. Start there. Go as far as you believe you are willing to believe you can be supported.
Okay.
And don't discount any avenue that you really believe is a representation of your excitement in any form.
Okay.
But also, don't put conditions on yourself. You see, what you just did in that last sentence was bring up a flurry of belief systems and conditions. The only way I can get there and support myself is by working here or doing this job I don't like. I have to do it that way. No, you don't. But you have just revealed to yourself all the belief systems you have about that. So that's good. You've just made yourself transparent, and now you can deal with why you are afraid to take that step. You are afraid to take that step because you have a definition that says you must do it in a way that is unpleasant for you, that is not preferred. But that's not necessarily an empirical truth. It's just your definition that says that. So get in touch with why you have that definition and why you've made it real, and make it unreal. Because it doesn't have to be real, does it? One of the wonderful, wonderful things that exists is that there are other people. Other people act as shining examples of what's possible. If someone else can do it, you can do it. Do you understand?
Yes.
That's why all of you, really, most importantly, can be examples to everyone else by really following your passion. Because when you see someone else do it, it's not that you have to do it exactly the same way, but if they did it, that means it's possible for you. If you have attracted yourself into their life, or at least attracted them into your life enough to be aware of them and what they've done, then be inspired by the fact that they've done it as knowledge. As knowledge that if you've attracted them into your life as an example, that's a sign, that's a marker that you've done that to show yourself you are capable of the same thing. So if they created abundance in their lives in a fantastically rich, effortless, fun, and playful way, so can you. If the example exists anywhere and you can see it or be aware of it, it means you're capable of the same thing, or the example would never have come into your life, because there are no accidents. Does that make sense?
Yes, it frees me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bashar.
This and what we are talking about in this kind of dialogue is not just a precursor to the idea of getting in touch with core beliefs. Everything we are saying has everything to do with really using this example, as we just pointed out in this last conversation, as an example of having your own dialogue at the same time and using this and applying it to your own situation to get in touch with your beliefs and your underlying beliefs and your core beliefs. All of this is part of the process. We are not stepping aside from all the other information we're talking about. This is part of the information. These dialogues are part of the information, part of the process in action. So pay attention to that. Are there more clarifications and questions?
Hello, dear Bashar.
And to you, good day.
I'm just step on the path when I'm trying to explore who I am and why I'm here.
Yes.
And it brings also tremendous responsibilities because it's
Stop. Before you go on, are you defining the term responsibility in a positive or negative way?
Positive.
All right. Go ahead.
And it's interesting, like you said, there's no accidents in the universe.
No.
And more I'm getting, I feel like I'm just on the baby level to be on that road, but I'm getting...
You all are.
Thank you. But I'm getting more and more.
And so are we.
Thank you.
We are always all learning. There is no end. So, we are all masters, and we're all on the baby level. And a master knows they're on the baby level. That's what makes them a master. Continue.
It's interesting that I'm getting more and more information about stuff what even hard to comprehend by human mind, but it's very exciting and very interesting about the answer to question why I'm here.
Yes.
And I would like you, would you please scan my energy and maybe ask the guys on the other side.
The guys?
To get their permission. Because in a way I feel that me and you are related.
In a sense, we are speaking to the people we are speaking to because there is an energetic connection. Otherwise, you'd be talking to someone else. So there is a relationship, there is a relatedness to the energy connection. Now, with their permission, your permission, and this goes for all of you, individually as well as collectively, what will help clarify some of these issues is information that does already exist. If you're not aware of it yet, it would be perhaps advantageous for you to become aware of this information. And it is in the form of what we will suggest as 3 books. Read Journey of Souls, Destiny of Souls, and the newest Conversations with God book called Home with God. All 3 are specifically about choosing from the spirit level the idea of physical reality and what goes into it and why you choose those things and why you wind up where you wind up. Educate yourself, if you have not done so yet, with the information in those books. They will help you synthesize a better and clearer understanding of the processes and mechanisms that go on in the spirit world that wind up in what your lives turn out to be, and thus, in some senses, answer many of the questions as to why is this happening? Why am I this person? So read those 3 books, see what that does, process that information, and see if it will take you further toward answering the why. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, one moment. One moment. Are you specifically or strongly attracted to the color lavender or the flower?
Yes.
All right. This is, again, coming from your guides, as a very good focusing element for you. It puts you, in a sense, helps you put yourself in the proper vibrational state to best absorb this kind of information. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I also have a question, more specific question.
Yes.
Is one of my guide extraterrestrial?
Yes.
Can you name
No.
him? Okay, thank you. My other question, and this was piquing my curiosity recently, it's about, and you brought it many times and even today, that it's no such thing as a past life, reincarnations. All lives are going on simultaneously.
Yes, you can experience it as a past life, but they don't really exist in the past because there's no such thing. Everything exists now.
Yes, but my question is, can I change my frequency to experience those lives and then change my frequency to the present frequency? And
yes.
Is it any effects of those parallel lives on a current frequency life?
Yes, of course. They're all interconnected. There is constant communication and bleed through of information and experiences crossing all those lives. Constantly. You may not always know where it comes from, where an inspiration suddenly comes from, but it might be coming from an experience in another parallel life that you know you can use in this life, and so you simply make a connection, download the information, and use it without necessarily having to know it's coming in that sense from another life. You understand?
Yes, but how I can achieve that? I was
You don't necessarily always want to know where it's coming from, because that might slow down your ability to actually use that information in this life. When you need to know where it comes from, you will.
All right.
You can be open to exploring that idea, and when and where it's important for you to know that it's part and parcel of another life experience your oversoul may be having, then you'll know. But if you don't know, it's not always important for you to know, because it may not be part of your experience here to know specifically where that information comes from, because you need to use it in this life in the way you need to use it, not in the way that version of you needed to use it. Make sense?
Yes.
But if it excites you to explore that idea, see where your excitement takes you without expectation. Because remember, you're choosing to live this life,
yes,
not become the other lives. Although you can connect to them, just use your imagination. The lavender may help with that as well.
Thank you.
But you may only at first get very quick flashes. That may be enough. Don't insist on more. Just take it the way it comes, because that's the way it serves you. And if it needs to come in longer flashes and longer understandings of what's going on in different lives, then the more you do it, it may come that way if it needs to. All right?
Yes.
Does that help you?
Yes.